A new candidate enters the race for South Carolina's governor's mansion, and he is a name that has made it on the podcast before. We are talking to Rom Reddy, the Lowcountry millionaire who is self-funding his campaign, not accepting donations, not accepting endorsements, and we are going to talk to him about his platform and his philosophies right now on We The Palmetto. We talked to Lowcountry voters. Trump was in true campaign form. Voting is officially underway. Joe Biden spoke here in the heart of downtown.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
If you'd like to join the conversation, send me an email at wcscpolitics@live5news.com. Let me know what you want to hear from politicians, or if there's an issue that you'd like to go deeper on. I'd love to hear from you. Again, that email address is wcscpolitics@live5news.com. All right, joining me now is Rom Reddy. He is the founder of Doge SC, but also the newest candidate for governor here in South Carolina. First off, thanks for coming by.
Of course. You and I have talked a lot before.
We sure have. The last time you were here, you referred to the governor as absentee. You expressed a desire to see a stronger executive in the governor's mansion. Are you going to be that stronger executive?
Well, look, we don't have a choice. The Constitution basically says you have to have three co-equal branches of government. And you say, why? Because each branch holds the other in check. So a strong executive keeps the legislature from overreach, and a strong executive protects the citizen from undue prosecution by the agency state. And so what's happened here is we've made the governor's office ceremonial. Why? Some people talk about the Constitution, they didn't want this, they didn't want that, but look, it's not constitutional. The Article 4 basically says the governor is the supreme executive authority in the state. And like I always say, act like it.
For the longest time, probably the last 8 or 9 months or so, we've all thought that there's going to be 5 candidates for governor, 4 real candidates for governor, maybe even only 3, depending on your perspective. You waited until the first day of filing to say, I'm in. What makes now the time that made you decide to join the race?
Because I never wanted to be in. This was not on my bucket list. I think Doge SC showed me 2 things. You and I talked about Doge in the past. It showed me that we have weaponized government against the citizen. Wherever I went, that's what I heard. It's family court, probate court, all these various agencies. We have just managed to weaponize government against citizens. That's what I found in Doge SC. And then I thought, you know what? I can make a difference from the outside, which is what we did with judicial reform. We got probably the most consequential bill through the House with all 85 Republicans voting for it, which in itself is a feat. And then it's in the Senate. We got a lot of support in the Senate, but probably 2 senators holding it up because it doesn't suit their fancy. But it was still a lot of work, Nick. I mean, it was a lot of work. It took a lot of work to get something that today's system, where you have the legislature picking the judges and then practicing in front of the judges they pick, is unconstitutional. It's just unconstitutional. And to correct something that's unconstitutional from outside was so hard. I finally said, I got to have someone in there who's prepared to shake the system up. So we waited to see if someone actually got in. I didn't want to be the guy. And then we realized we've got 4 candidates, for lack of a better word, I'll call them the ruling class. And they're all in the same lane. It's the ruling class. They've been there for 50 plus years in government. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. They're not going to change it. This is what they've always done. And so I think really in the last 6 weeks is when we started thinking about it. Do we need to do something here? And yeah, we waited to see if maybe someone else gets in and lifts the heavy load. But at this point in time, that hasn't happened. So here we are.
Candidates like Nancy Mace and Ralph Norman, they both seem to have that message of being more conservative and wanting to come from the outside, clean things up, change things up in Colombia. It sounds like you're not quite, or at least 6 weeks ago when you started looking at whether or not you should jump in, you looked at what they were saying and said, I don't believe them. I mean, is that right?
It's not believe them. I think it's for the voters to decide. It's not what I believe. It's for voters to decide. One of them has been there since 2004 in elected office of some form. The other one's been there really for most of her life in some form of politics. Even before she was elected, she was involved in politics on the public relations side and all this kind of stuff. And they're all taking money. South Carolina is 40 out of 50 in terms of transparency of dark money. We have no transparency, basically. So what happens is the citizen, you go vote for someone in the ruling class, and you have no idea who has bought and paid for them. None. You can't find it. It's not in any disclosure. You can go on the internet and do ChatGPT or whatever. You're not going to find it because the disclosure rules in South Carolina are so bad that, and so here I am, like the president. I'm a Wharton Business School grad. I've been in the private sector my whole life, created jobs, invested millions, built businesses, never been, in elected office. And I'm told, I don't know if it's true, I'm told this is unprecedented, that I will not take any money. I will not take money from anyone, not even small dollar donations, not even transparent donations, nothing. I will not accept any money. I think money has destroyed politics in some ways in South Carolina. So we're going to do something that no one's done. And I think it's just a choice for the people. The people can decide. There's 2 lanes in my view. There's 4 people in one lane. It's me in the other lane. And they can decide whether that's true or not. It's not for me to decide.
The counter argument to that is that people say folks with a lot of money will come in and they'll try and buy an election because they have the money to do it. And then they'll say, well, we're not taking donations because donations are with the dark money are a sign of corruption. What do you say to folks who say that you're coming in, you're going to try and buy the election?
When you say that, you really are assuming that the voters are stupid. And I never assume that. I think the voters are very smart. And if you're transparent with them, they'll make the right decision. The problem in South Carolina is there is no transparency. So when you have a voter going and voting for someone and they have no idea who all has donated to these people, how does that voter make a decision? With me, they know. It's just me. You can call it rich, poor, whatever, but I'm the American dream. I lived the American dream. I started with really nothing as a student. And I am where I am. And the fact of the matter is, it's not something I want. I don't benefit from this in any way. I don't have any businesses or anything that I benefit from. I have a child who's a freshman in high school. It's not the best time for me to tell her to move if I win. But Nick, I have to tell you, some of these folks I talk to when we have these little rallies, they'll literally bring tears to your eyes. We have somehow managed to take government and go after the citizen when our founding fathers, just 250 years ago, said the role of elected officials is to protect your God-given rights. Our rights come from God. We're endowed by our Creator. Is in the Declaration is probably forever will set the moral direction for this nation. And as elected officials, we're supposed to protect those rights, not go after people, and that's what we're doing. We've really weaponized government against the citizen, and I don't know how you say someone who is part of the ruling class is going to stop it. And
well, this has given us insight into sort of your philosophy, your outlook on how government should work. But let's talk about specifically some of the hard points, the platform points that people need to know about. What takes top billing in your platform?
So we want to be very transparent. So if you go to our website, readyforgovernor.com, it's so clearly laid out. By the way, it's the first website in the nation, I think, it's set up with AI like ChatGPT. You can simply say, what is Rom's education policy? And it'll tell you that. What does Rom think about something else? It'll tell you that. And there are 4 principles laid out there. I will never bend on those. There is nothing you can do to make me change my mind on those 4 principles. And then there's 8 specific deliverables. So 4 principles that never change, 8 specific deliverables that I'll get done. And I simply say, if I don't deliver, I will not run again. Period. End of story.
A very business-like man approach to politics here.
It's an approach that says we've got to focus on results, not on process. So I'm saying, here is a result. For example, I will get rid of the income tax, but I will do it the right way. You cannot. I always give this example. If you've got a 2-income family and one spouse stops working, you'll bankrupt the family unless you cut your expenses. And here we're talking about all this tax reform and tax stuff. And I heard one of the candidates say she's going to eliminate the tax in 100 days or something like that. It's impossible to do, and you'll bankrupt the state. So, but I know how to do this. This is my wheelhouse, right? Restructuring businesses and fixing them. I'll do it the right way. We got to fix property taxes, for example. It's a life sentence. You can pay off your car, you can pay off your house, you'll never pay off your property tax. And so there are specifics in here that I say, I will deliver it the right way. We have actually detail behind that. And I'm saying, if I don't, I'll never run again. I mean, who's going to tell you that? And, I'm not beholden to anyone. I don't have any special interest money. And I'm saying this is what I'll deliver.
Now, does that include, though, because doing something like that's going to require cooperation from fellow Republicans, lawmakers, and maybe not tax specifically, but some of your goals requires efforts from the judiciary and business folks. With taxes in particular, I mean, can you get that done with, as you dealing with the legislature, knowing how difficult it is for the legislature to get anything done?
No, absolutely not. I think we absolutely need the legislature. I think we're a team. We'll be a team. That's what leadership is about. These folks don't have any leadership. It's absent. You tell me, who do you think is the leader in this state? No one. There is no leader. So essentially, when you don't have any leader, you have tactics. You're doing all these little things with no strategy. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set this agenda up front. So if people do decide to vote for me, they're voting for the agenda, not the person, but the agenda. I'm going to say I'm going to get it done. And then that becomes a mandate that I will work with the legislature. I don't believe in what all these past governors have done. They go in there, and some of the current group of people, I'm going to tear all these people down. I'm going to tear Columbia down. I don't believe that's not leadership. I'll work with these folks and get it done. But I will also reassert the executive authority. The governor has a very powerful tool called the veto. And the veto will be sustained by me. Why? Because I will be in the districts of these various legislatures talking about my agenda. And so there's a carrot and a stick, but look, I worked judicial reform with the legislature, as you know. I got every single Republican in the House to vote for it, unheard of, for something that consequential. And we have 26 last count out of 32 Republican senators right now in the Senate supporting it. How am I doing this as an outsider?
Every time you and I talk, you bring up AI and technology, integrating it in and making it do things like find inefficiencies in government. It seems like you're a big proponent of using AI to get things done. What kind of role would AI play in your administration, knowing that a lot of people are kind of wary of just how powerful some of these tools can be?
I am too, because I think what we don't do is distinguish between the two types of AI. There's two types of AI. One is the AI that's knowledge-based, right? You say, teach my kids history, teach my kids gender, teach my kids any of that. This is knowledge-based. It goes and just surveys all the databases for this stuff and feeds all this stuff in there. I am 100% opposed to that. The second part of AI, which is completely different, is what I call transactional-based. Like we're doing right now, we have a thing being developed for forensic audits that simply says, Where is the money coming from? Where is it going to? If I go out and hire an accounting firm, it'll cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars and several months to audit an agency or audit a school district or whatever. I can do this in half a day. So AI for transactional stuff is a silver bullet. AI for knowledge, I am 100% opposed to. I don't think we should be involved. Government should be involved in any way, and you have to be very careful with it. So I think there's a distinction there that sometimes we don't understand.
Yeah, sometimes South Carolina is a little slow to get to the uptake on new technology. AI could be used to find those inefficiencies that you talk about. Representative Mace just put out a poll today showing that she had something like 25 or 20-something% of likely Republican voters. The other two candidates right at 15, 18%, somewhere in there. 30% still undecided. When the next poll comes out that has your name on it, where do you think those numbers will shift?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think the whole thing here is this is not a me versus them or anything like that. This is two lanes, and people now have a choice. Personally, I don't see a big distinction between any four of them. I don't know what their policies are other than some slogans. I'll cut taxes. I'll do this. I'll do that. So people can decide. There's two lanes. You got 50 plus years of government in one lane. They've been talking about this stuff. My question to any of them would be, why haven't you done it? Why haven't you done it? Why are you talking about it so many years later? Why have you not done it? Every one of you is in some form of office that actually represents South Carolina. And so in the other lane is someone that says, I've done this all my life. I've run businesses, I've fixed businesses, I've grown businesses, and I'm telling you, here are 8 specific things I will do. I'm not taking money from anyone, and if I don't do it, I'll never run again. So I think it's a choice for the people. We forget that this is all about people saying, do I want more of the same? A wise man once said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So
I just want to bring up one more thing for you. One of the first comments I saw on social media after you announced was, I believe it was a lady saying something like, oh, good, another conservative candidate to split the vote so that we get another rhino in the governor's mansion. What do you say to those folks who have that kind of thinking?
I like I said, I have never run for office. I'm not a politician. I don't look at all of these things. I just listen to what my patriots have told me. I don't remember the last time I was here, but we started out with 2 people on Facebook, I think, on Doge SC, and we ended up at 34,000 8 months later. And these people are true believers that we got to go back to 1776. We got to go back to this dream our founders handed us, which is what I believe in, which is part of my 4 beliefs. My first 2 beliefs are our rights come from God, which is we kneel to God, not government, has always been our motto. The second is the Constitution will always be my guide. It is the supreme law of the land. And I will always go back to that as a compass, right? So that's what I want to do, and I think it's for the people to decide. This is what I believe in. I will not bend on those beliefs. These are the things I'm going to deliver, and then they should ask the other lane, what is the difference between you guys in that lane? I don't know. I think it's for people to ask.
You've kind of already done it, but I always give folks at the very end an opportunity to give their sort of closing statement to voters. What would you say to the voters? Why should they vote for you?
All I'll say is this. There are 2 clear lanes. There's 4 politicians who have been there for 50-some years in one lane, and there's me in the other lane. Those folks have taken money. They take money from everyone. You don't even know who's giving them money. I take money from no one. I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm a great believer in what our founders did. I don't know what they believe in, so it's for the voters to find out. But I will tell you one thing. I will end once and for all the weaponization of government against the citizen. We have weaponized government against the citizen. It is very, very sad when you talk to the people who cannot defend themselves. People like me are fine. I can defend myself. I can defend myself. I can surround myself with lawyers or whoever. It is the people who cannot, which is a large number of people. It is very sad to see what they're doing. They're taking the children away from them with absolutely no recourse. They're punishing them in these various administrative courts through these agencies. I will end it. I will end the weaponization. The citizen will go back to being in charge of their own life.
All right, Rom Reddy, running for governor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Make sure you subscribe to We The Palmetto anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can watch the video versions on the Live 5 streaming service on platforms like Roku. And if you want to join the conversation, make sure you send us an email at wcscpolitics@live5news.com. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week.